Hey guys, this is Ash and you're watching Right Ash. So we have come to the end of September, well, a little bit after the end of September, and I wanted to do a quick wrap up of September and of BookoplAthon. BookoplAthon? You know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, I will link all the relevant information in the description box. That being said, I had a very stressful and unproductive reading month in September. I tried to stick to my TBR and miserably failed. But I barely made it through the month of September, completing my entire my goals for the month and finishing all the prompts. So if you don't remember from my TBR video, I made a little roll log with all of the rolls and everything. I really was a little ambitious when I decided to do 5 rolls. I should have just stuck with 2 or 3 because 5 is too much when in a month I was trying to do so much for school. But I won't bore you with that. We'll just move on to the wrap up. So the first prompt I had to read for was a book with a pattern or text. And I initially started reading Night Circus and I got I was doing the audiobook, maybe 3 hours into the audiobook, and I DNF'd it. I just couldn't. There was just something about that story that felt very disconnected. It just wasn't working for me. I was like, shit, am I hitting a reading slump? And then this book arrived. This is The Ballad of Never After, and it took me less than 24 hours to read it. Also, look at this color. How perfect of a match is this? And that looks so beautiful. I did that, and I'm just so fucking proud of it. But the reason I think it fits the pattern and text thing, one, obviously, like this is a beautiful pattern text, and it's just a pattern and text on the cover. But I think this might be the perfect fit for the prompt with this like gorgeous foiled pattern on it. And then the text. And also if you look at the UK cover with all of the gorgeous patterns, which I also have, but it's on my desk getting painted right now, so I can't show you photos. But quite the perfect fit for this prompt, isn't it? Anyway, so moving on. Well, before we move on, this book was an absolute 5 out of 5 stars for me. I freaking love Stephanie Garber's writing, and while I was feeling so down about maybe hitting a slump, this like rejuvenated me. I loved Jax's character so much, and this book just gave him to the perfect level, and it was fantastic. I don't want to talk about the details in this book because it's a huge spoiler for Once Upon a Broken Heart, and I recommend everyone go read that, so I'm not going to spoil it for you. But Once Upon a Broken Heart is a spin-off of Caraval, but separately can be read. It's about Evangeline who goes through the Northern Kingdom, continent, or something, and gets into a situation, marries the prince. Prince doesn't do so well, and things happen, and Jax, someone we know and love from the Caraval series, shows up. Well, he's there already. And things get even more complicated. And he is the perfect, cocky, misunderstood, dark, broody, morally gray protagonist that you're dying to get your hands on. So read that book if you're craving a bit of mystery, magic, and just amazing things. That was my favorite book of 2021. Just the absolute best. Okay. So the next book I read was for my favorite genre. I decided to go with romantic comedies for that because I love fantasies. But with fantasies, it's a very big hit or miss for me. But with romantic comedies, I mostly love everything. So for that, I read The Roommate Situation. It was a book with romantic comedy legit written on the cover. And it is by Katie Bailey, and I gave it a 3-star. It's about a girl who goes to live with her brother after lot of stuff goes down with her ex, and her brother is away and renting the house to his best friend. And now she has to live with her brother's best friend, and things happen. And it's just that. It's a good book, but I feel like reading it after the masterpiece that Ballad was, it was hard to compare anything. So maybe my rating isn't the most just, but it felt like a solid 3-star fitted. And 3-star isn't a bad rating by any means. I just feel like it was a good read. It wasn't the best book in the world, you know? Anyway, so the next prompt was letter. And for that, I had to generate like a random letter, and I got C. So it could either be the author's name or the book. And Go Hex Yourself is by Jessica Clare, C for Claire, and it is such a good book. I gave this book a 4 stars. It's about this girl who has no idea about magic, and she decides to become a familiar for a witch. And her grumpy nephew is in the picture. And when I went into this book, I was thinking familiar, the animals that follow witches around. No, it just means a magical assistant. And it was a hilarious read with quite lovable characters and just a wonderful time altogether. So the next book I read was for multiple perspectives, and I read The Guide to Being Just Friends. It's an arc that I got, and I believe I gave it 3 or 4 stars. My laptop just died, so I can't look it up. But I really enjoyed this book. It was a fun story with a great host of characters. The girl just moves into a new town after a breakup, like with many of the books we've talked about so far. One of the books we've talked about so far. And she has a weird, disastrous meet cute with this guy because he mistakes her for his date. And he's kind of rude to her, but they kind of mend, things and become friends. In the whole story, they are really good friends, and their friendship is the forefront of this book. And I think that is a really good foundation to have. And I really love that part about this book. And then things get amped up into a relationship, and that feels organic. But they keep getting thrown a bunch of obstacles in that relationship. And normally, that's what you expect, right? But this just keeps happening, keeps getting resolved like that. So it doesn't feel played out. The obstacle, if it was just like a lot of things, yes, okay. But if they were kind of broken up and played out, I think that would work better. And that didn't happen. So yeah, I think I gave it a solid 3 stars, or like 3.5. But did love the characters. I loved both of them, and I think it is a great story. So kudos to the author for such an amazing book, and thank you for NetGalley for giving me this. And thank you to NetGalley for giving me this arc. The next book I read was supposed to be a small book, so I read a book that was like 20 some pages. The Tiger Came Down the Mountain, and so I read The Tiger Came to the Mountain by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and I did not rate it. It was a really short book, so I didn't feel like I could accurately rate this book, but I enjoyed it. Now, then I reached the last prompt. Well, technically this should have been the last prompt, but I counted the Pasco for the last book I was going to read, and that was to randomize something of my TBR. I had initially had Summer Islands on this. I decided I just could not do it. I started to read it, chapter 1, I DNF'd it. It just I wasn't feeling it, and I was already slumping really hard, so I didn't want to risk it. So I decided to randomize it again, and may have stacked some stuff in my favor. So I added a few mangas to my TBR, and then I rolled the dice. And not the dice, but like I rolled the generator. And this was absolute coincidence. I did not plan this I got a 2. And my second book on my then newly minted Goodreads TBR was Secret Girl, which is a manga, and it was kind of cringy. Okay, maybe gave it a 2 stars, didn't like it that much, but it was a manga which I could get through in an hour or so. So that got me through the month of September, and that's all I needed. But I am glad I gave these books a shot, and I'm happy with how it went, so I can't complain. But September was a stressful reading month, and I thought maybe I'd make it easier on myself for October, and then I didn't make it easier on myself for October, so doing great here, right? But I'll try, give it my best shot in October and see if I can barely scrape by then too. But I had a wonderful time at least reading this book, which was now maybe one of my favorite books of the year. Wait, I forgot I read Hosab this year, and I freaking loved Hosab. I feel like I keep reading quite amazing books, which makes me forget about all the other amazing books I've read. But anyway, rambling again, my brain's not doing too well right now. With that being said, I had a wonderful time reading this book, and hopefully I'm gonna be back to my good old reading ways soon enough. This is the best way to end a video, with my AirPods falling out of my ears. Well, I'll see you guys later. Bye.